What the Tech is sponsored by Audible.com, the internet's leading provider of audiobooks, with more than 100,000 downloadable titles across all types of literature. For a free audiobook of your choice, go to audiblepodcast.com/Andrew. Shutterstock.com, with over 26 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips. For 30% off your new account, go to Shutterstock.com and use offer code WhatTheTech6.
What the Tech?
Hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zarian.
I thought you were going to break into a drum beat there or something like the start of a Beatles song. And a 1 and a 2.
And a 1 and a 2
Can't
and a 1, 2,
3.
You know? I was going to, you know what? I kind of like the later Beatles stuff, Paul.
Okay, sorry.
Like Happiness is a Warm Gun and you know, stuff like that.
I will tell you, like most Beatles fans, that growing up, I went through the phases where I liked the earlier stuff better, then I liked the later stuff better. Then, you know,
I like the druggy stuff.
Yeah,
the druggy stuff and me relate. So I'm a degenerate and I like to drink. And you know what's the weirdest part?
You do more closely resembles the Beatles in the later years.
Yes, I do actually, especially when I grow the beard.
Yeah.
My accent. I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand. But I get a little too drunk. And I'll really get into music and I'll start playing. It's like 11 o'clock and I have like a Beatles record playing in my living room, like literally a record. And my wife will come downstairs like, what are you doing? And she'll see me like swaying with the music. I'm like, this is amazing. This is great stuff.
They don't make music like this anymore.
I start screaming about like how music today is ridiculous. She's like, you know that you're not even 30. Like, what do you mean by today's music is bad? Like today's music is your music. I'm like, yeah, but it's not good. It's not like the old days. I'm going this whole rant about how music has taken a downward spiral.
Like the late 1990s.
Listen, the 90s had great music too. The grunge era was phenomenal. You'll listen to This Week in Music, TWIM, here on the GFQ Network. Of course, I'm joining with Paul Thurrott. I didn't introduce you, Paul. How you doing?
You should have a This Week in Music. You shouldn't, actually. This Week in Music is probably terrible. But like This Week in Music in 1999.
Britney Spears, Backstreet Boys, and possibly NSYNC. You know, they did have that great album with Justin Timberlake, so a lot happened in 99.
I subscribe to Rolling Stone, and on the back page, they always have like the charts, which I have to say are increasingly useless to me, but they also have charts from like the top part of the chart from, say, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, or 20 years ago. You know, it kind of varies from issue to issue. And every time it's, you know, in some period of time that I actually listen to music and I look at it and I think, yikes. Yeah. Like, it was pretty bad.
Well, I feel bad that you got Rolling Stone still.
No, Rolling Stone's actually a surprisingly decent magazine, by the
way. Are they still okay? Because I haven't read it since like I was like 5. Because I started out reading Rolling Stone when I was like 4.
This is not like Guitar Magazine or Cream or something. Like, this is actually a fairly intelligent publication. I like it. They have good political writing. It's good.
I picked it up recently. One of my friends, he was in Rolling Stone. Like, he had an ad for AudioVox a couple years ago. And I picked it up, and it was not the Rolling Stone that like from like the 90s. You know, it was not good. Maybe I'm missing. Maybe they got better. Well, maybe I just can't understand what they're saying. Maybe it's too advanced for me.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. We have a lot to talk about today. WWDC was yesterday. Sony's big announcement was yesterday. Microsoft's announcement was yesterday. First of all, it was one of the most absurd days ever.
It was awesome.
It was awesome, but like everything was one day. I was literally on the air from 11 o'clock in the morning to about 10 o'clock at night when I finally had my mental break. And I lost it on Twitter. I started going berserk. What
happened with you? What's the story?
So we're going to get into what the announcements were, obviously, but I guess I'm negative, but like one of the only things I'm not really negative with is with technology. I'll have complaints like the iPod Touch, for example. I have serious issues with that, but generally, I don't hate anything. Like, I don't hate Apple. I don't hate Microsoft. I don't hate Sony. I don't hate Xbox.
We got to stop this right here.
Okay.
That obviously is your problem.
I think so.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right.
Honestly, unfortunately, we are clearly in an era where what wins are the people who can kind of shout you down. You know, that if you don't feel insanely strongly about something, then you know, the centrist message is not anything that people are interested in.
I mean, and you know what? I think you're absolutely right. I think I'm wrong in this. But these points that people make on what they don't like, it's absurd. Like, there are many things not to like about the new Xbox. There's many things not to like about Sony's PlayStation. One of the things that I find absurd...
Actually, to be honest,
yeah.
I'm not really clear that there are many things to dislike about either one of these things. I think that you have to be... It's like the Rodney Dangerfield thing from Back to School. It's like, wow, that guy really cares about something. What it is, we'll never know. You know, like, people get really excitable about stuff. But I really feel like after all of the yelling is over, a lot of the stuff that people are complaining about with regards to these things in particular, and some of the Apple stuff too, by the way, it doesn't really matter. You know, it's amazing to me how freaked out people can get.
Oh, it's hysterical. It's hysteria. I mean, it's hysterical to see the hysteria happening. But here were a couple things that drove me over the edge. First thing, people hated the iOS 7 update. They think it's hideous.
All right, first of all, that is ludicrous. I not that that's happening. I mean, that opinion is ludicrous. Like,
no, it is. Yeah.
The reason is, we've talked a lot about this and how easy it would be for Apple to update things and, you know, yada, yada, yada. It's interesting to see what they do and then sort of compare it to what you thought they should do. And I guess the thing I would come away with, and I think I've written this, is simply that, you know, they've held on to some things that I kind of disagree with from the past. But on the other hand, they have 600 million customers, and you can't just blow it away and start over from scratch. If you do, you get Windows 8, and people don't like that.
Sure.
And the trick, though, the goal of any update should be to look at what you used to use side by side, and it should make the other one look old by comparison. And I think iOS 7 passes that test. You know,
I think they did a phenomenal. I think they did a great job. This is exactly what they had to do. It was exactly what I had envisioned for them to do. I'm
not sure it's exactly what they had to do, but I mean, that's where I'm saying, you know, we can quibble about things, but it is. I guess the question is it enough? You know,
I think so. I think it looks.
I think so.
First of all, in my opinion, the everyday user doesn't give two craps.
I think that's probably
I don't think they're looking at iOS and saying, "Oh, this is so 2007," and they throw it in a corner.
All right, I look at it and I think, "Wow, this thing's really old-fashioned." And the people who use it look at it and they don't think
yourself,
anything,
you, me, our viewers, we look at it and say, "You know what? It looks kind of dated. We're more connected to what's happening." I don't look at this thing and say, "You know, this is hideous." I heard someone complain, "It looks like Easter." It's a little pastel-y. Okay. But you know what? That was what they were demoing. You know what? You get a different background. It looks a little different. Now that people are complaining, Hellcat said the control center looks like Android. People saying, well, they ripped Android off. I don't believe in this ripping off concept. Technology takes a turn left or a turn right, and that's what everybody follows. This is where the trend is at right now. This is what everybody's doing. I can't say, like, it's like saying, well, you know, ludicrous complaint. People are complaining about the tabbed look for the new Finder on Mavericks, which is their new OS X.
Right.
People are saying, well, oh yeah, IE's been doing that since the beginning. That was somebody's point yesterday in my chat room.
IE?
Internet Explorer.
What does that have to do with the Finder?
You tell me. And I looked, and I'm like,
Windows doesn't have tabbed File Explorer either.
No,
so.
They don't. But their point was, well, IE's been doing this since the beginning. Good job, Apple, at ripping Internet Explorer off. I go, they're not the same thing. Like,
okay, that's just that doesn't even that we shouldn't even just skip that one.
But it was. But I saw that complaint over and over again. People saying, well, Chrome does tabs, Firefox does tabs.
It's like saying, yeah, but I like chocolate.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. You know,
lost my mind.
If you ever see the Kids in the Hall movie where they're having an argument, and I think it was called Brain Candy or something like that, and he says, hold on a second. He goes, can we both agree that the sky is blue? And he's like, what? He goes, the sky is blue, right? Yeah, the sky is blue. And he goes, good. Now that we're in agreement.
Yeah,
you know, and then we're talking about something else completely, but it's like, just let's move on from that. That's ridiculous.
But the point, it's to the point that, like, we don't look at this thing and say, you know what? That actually looks really nice. Good on them. Good job, Apple. You did good here. Or good job, Microsoft. That's a pretty cool feature. What we will do, we will totally erase the fact that, you know what? I think that's pretty, the Finder having tabs is a really good idea. I think that's a good idea. It might work. It might help with productivity. You know why they're doing it? Because majority of their user base is using a laptop and it's a small screen and they can't clutter with the Finder up. They don't want to clutter up the desktop. It makes sense.
I also just point out from a sort of a general strategy perspective that Apple has decided they're going the two solution route. They're going to have tablets, so they're going to have computers, and they're not going to mix and match like Microsoft has done. And it makes sense that on the one that is a kind of a pure computer, that it would have that kind of advanced functionality.
I thought that was a good that was a nice feature at it. I think the second screen experience on it was pretty cool.
I kind of snooze off during the Mac OS X stuff.
Do you? You're so
not
bored
because
with it.
No, because it's like boring or whatever. But because they are doing that strategy, they are basically we're going to arrive at the point where we're at Mac OS X 10.27 or something in the future. Like they're just going to evolve and evolve and evolve this thing, and that's fine. It's just it's not really interesting. It's that product is already very mature and capable. It works fine. A lot of the stuff they're adding, we're at the point now where it's not like it needs anything. It's just, well, this would be nice. This would vaguely improve productivity slightly if we added this.
It was fascinating that they were concentrating on the power user. They said power user about 3,000 times
because that's who uses computers, right? Those are the truck drivers.
Yeah, I mean,
they have specific needs.
I kind of like the fact that it's two separate operating systems. I like my desktop to be my desktop. I like my tablet to be my tablet, and I think they both have, a purpose. I'm not crazy about the Metro thing and combining into one, but we'll see with 8.1. We'll see if they fix a lot of these issues.
The one thing that Microsoft, I think, has gotten right broadly, which Apple doesn't really do between OS X and iOS, is they have sort of a familial user experience. That you go to the Xbox, you have a nice, clean, tile-based UI. You go to the phone, you have a nice, clean, tile-based UI. You go to the Windows, and a lot of people are controversy, but you've got a PC or a tablet, you got a nice clean tile interface. And obviously there are improvements that need to be made, but I think there are some advantages to that where you get the feeling that this stuff is a concerted effort, even though they were made by teams and so forth.
I don't know. I don't know if this makes any sense what I'm about to say, but I think because Microsoft has a 90-something share of the PC market, the people using it are less enthusiasts than possibly the MacBook Pro users.
The people using what?
PCs are less of a hardcore user, power user than
in general. Obviously, in general. Yes, there are.
So I could understand why Microsoft had to cater to the average user. Someone that doesn't like my father, someone that doesn't really use a computer, but he understands Metro. He won't understand desktop, but he understands, okay, this icon does this. I'm going to click on this, and that's it. That's all I want to do.
Yeah, okay.
Some of the other things that I heard, and of course we're going to run down the stories, but I just want to get this out there because it drove me nuts. Microsoft, and this was the most insane argument. Microsoft is dead in the water with their Xbox One. Why? They're $499. By the way, this is before the Sony announcement.
I love that.
It's $499. If they were $399, I would be buying it. But for $499, no way. And I turned to him and I said, very calm, I go, if you're concerned over the $100, if that's your make or break,
right,
maybe you shouldn't be spending the $400 to buy it because obviously you're not in a really good financial situation right now.
Conceivably, you're going to be using this thing for 5 to 8 years, right?
So that $100 you're going to get back.
This is like when you put down a couple $100 for a phone. That's not how much you pay for the phone. That initial cost has nothing to do with your lifetime cost for this device. You need to factor in the cost of the online service. You need to factor in the cost of all the games you're going to buy over time. And honestly, the other thing is, I would also say I do believe that Microsoft should have come out with a version of the Xbox One that doesn't have the Kinect, and that one could have been $399, problem solved. They didn't do that, but when you add a PS4 i to the PS4, which is their version of Kinect, total cost of that thing $460, $40 difference on a $500 purchase is 8%.
Yeah.
It's not a big difference. This is a wash. That whole thing is like, this is what's going to kill it. It's like, not really.
The $100 to me means nothing. But a lot of people are arguing that. Well, if it was $399, I'd be buying this thing in a heartbeat. I'd be standing in line for 10 hours to buy this thing. But for that $100, what are you, crazy?
I don't.
It's absurd.
That's ludicrous. And that's what I'm talking about. These are the bloviators, you know.
And if it was $399, you would have said if it was $299, I would be buying it.
The real hardcore Xbox users are not listening to this conversation. And there are a lot of people who are out there arguing, who are pretending to be real hardcore Xbox gamers or whatever, and they're not. Because the real guys the only conversation is, when can I buy this now? I'm sorry, I have my credit card. Is there some way I can use that right now, please?
Did you pre-order?
Yeah.
Me too.
Of course.
Okay. Didn't know.
Of course. I pre-ordered 2.
Are you waiting online? Like, how is it going to work? They're going to deliver it the day of, or?
So it doesn't actually say that right now, but I assume that will be the case.
It'd be nice if you get it early.
If necessary, go and stand in line that night too. I mean, there's no reason I can't return one if I have to, but we'll see.
I was thinking I would like drive to the Microsoft store and do like like an interview thing with the people standing in line. Like I would want to do that. The people standing online, I just go and I interview them. And when I ask them if the $100 makes a big difference. People are complaining about the Sony announcement. A lot of people were saying, why is it all about the TV again? Great, Sony's turning their back on the gamers also. And I try to be rational and try to explain the bigger picture. Like, listen, the gaming community, even though it's a multi-billion-dollar business, it's still far smaller than the television market. Most people watch TV. Most people do not play video games on a PlayStation 3. They're trying to cover their losses on their prior generation and say, you know what? We want to have a media center. We want to be this all-in-one device in your living room, so we're going to market it that way. You're more inclined to purchase something if you know it's going to do more, rather than just play a game. I think a lot of people are also upset about that, which I think is absurd also. Do you get that argument, Paul? Like that argument where, screw Microsoft, screw Sony.
Of course.
They're talking about TV way too much.
Yeah, that was the whole problem after the reveal, It was like TV. I had a guy on Twitter the other day. I think it was on Twitter, possibly in my comments, but someone communicated to me something I thought was really funny. He basically said, he goes, I watched this Xbox event at E3 this week, and it's like games. He goes, as someone who likes Netflix and Hulu, I'm just tired of all this talk about games, which kind of throws that argument on its head, which I liked.
I love that. That's actually, I wish I saw that.
Yeah, brilliant.
I would have, good on you, my friend. I would have retweeted you.
Yep.
So I do want to talk about actually what happened, but I did want to take a little while and get some release here because I lost my mind last night. It could have been like the 3 glasses of scotch that I had also, but I don't know. What do you say, Paul? I think I was justified in kind of.
Yeah, no, I get to this point. I try not to involve my wife, especially over this stuff, the work-related stuff or whatever. But sometimes I walk out of my office, and she actually said this to me yesterday. She's like, "Why are you sighing so much?" And I'm like, people are just frustrating. It's amazing. It's too bad. I feel bad about it.
Yeah. I'm going to go into WWDC, but before we do, I want to thank a sponsor of ours, and that's Shutterstock.com. Really, really awesome service. We have a new intern here at GFQ. His name is Joe, and he is a video major, and he does also Photoshop, and he does a lot of graphic stuff on the side. And he was asking me where we get a lot of our images. Do we make them? Do we get stock images? And I pretty much told him, I'm like, hey, actually, I did like a live read for him, which was a little weird. I'm like, I just want to let you know about Shutterstock. They have over 26 million high-quality photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips. And he's like, what are you doing right now? I'm like, oh, sorry, I thought this was a show. But I turned him on to it, and he said he was going to check it out and get some stuff. I think if you're in the business, the industry of making photos, making videos, if you're a photographer that wants to submit your stuff, you can also. This is a great service, and they offer a phenomenal deal for our audience. You get 30% off on a new account by going to Shutterstock.com, and you got to use offer code WhatTheTech6. WhatTheTech6 is the offer code. Use it. You get 30% off on a new account, which is great. Nice, significant, big, chunky discount on what you're buying. Whether you're doing a website, a publication, an advertisement, a video, they have everything for you to choose from. I believe they're adding about 10,000 images a day. So there's something for everybody at this point with over 26 million things to select from. Really great service, really great stuff. Suncast, that does our imaging, uses it. Josh Coleman, which has J Mavericks Design, he does a show here on the network. He also uses Shutterstock. Unfortunately, they didn't use our promo code because they bought it before we started advertising. They started advertising with us. So a lot of stuff to choose from, a lot of great stuff to pick. It doesn't matter, video, audio, video, images, illustrations, vectors, everything. That's Shutterstock.com. Use offer code WhatTheTech6 and get 30% off on a new account. I want to thank Shutterstock for supporting What the Tech. So, Paul, where do you want to begin? Do you want to start with WWDC?
Yeah, let's do that.
I feel like at this point I should be. It's like the WWF. Like it's just all out brawl amongst everybody.
I don't know. Okay, let's go.
So I'm just we're just gonna shoot right through it because there's so much to pick from.
Right.
iOS 7. What did you think of it overall?
So I think there are, as promised, some important moves toward that kind of grid design, Swiss design stuff that Microsoft has been pioneering, at least in digital devices. So that stuff's good. I think they're cleaner displays, no more of the faux material baloney, smart. It's awfully white. A lot of the displays are very bright white, and we'll see how that translates. There's been some weird translucency things like around that control center UI, which I'm hoping they fix. But fundamentally, at the core of it, the whole program launching bit is exactly the same. And I sort of don't like that personally, and I have called it on this podcast and elsewhere for them to change it a little more deeply than that. But I also respect the fact and understand that they have hundreds of millions of users. A lot of them are just normal human beings and maybe wouldn't be able to handle a big change. And there you go. So, I was kind of goofing on some of the stuff in the Apple keynote. Can you hear the dogs going insane outside of my window? I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
Are they being shot? What's happening?
I don't often wish I had a gun, but this is one of those moments where I think I would, use my Call of Duty skills and put an end to this. Anyway, I was having fun with the Apple keynote online, which some people find humorous and some people consider me to be a hater for or whatever. But overall, pretty positive. The presentation itself was good. Craig Federini, or whatever that guy's name is, I thought was good. He's been terrible in the past.
It was much better than last year, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. You made a comment earlier about there being kind of pastel-y color schemes and things, and that's true, but that's probably going to be their default wallpaper, and you can change all that stuff. Overall, I think it's fine. I mean, my bigger issue, when I hold an iPhone, and by the way, we should get off on a side topic briefly. Did you notice there wasn't a single mention of iPad in any of this?
Nothing.
Right?
Nothing.
This was all about the iPhone. So obviously the iPhone and the iPod Touch share the same basic form factor, and those things will translate back and forth very easily. But I'm actually kind of wondering, and I think I would be very interested if this were true, whether they're going to tailor iOS 7 for the iPad in some unique way. I think that would be kind of neat. I'm surprised they never showed a single screen.
Of the iPad. Interesting.
Of the iPad. Yeah, so we'll see.
And it was very secondary when they said they've released the developer preview. It's available for developers. They're like, and it's also on the iPad. It was like this, okay, don't worry about it. It was all about the iPhone, and then just pushed off the iPad. You may be right. Maybe they are going to tailor it for the next generation iPad to kind of be a little different.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, maybe I'm giving a little too much credit. I mean, it will ship for the iPad and be exactly the same. But the iPad has kind of a more pleasing 4x3 form factor that I think is lacking on the iPhone side of it. When they added the height to the iPhone 5, what they didn't do was add any width, and I feel like this thing is a little too tall and skinny, and it's awkward in the hand. It feels sharp, and it's harder to hold than a lot of phones. I hope that they spend some time this year on the hardware as well, and don't just make another phone that has the exact same dimensions as this one. I feel like they kind of blew it there, but I guess that's not an iOS comment. Anyway, overall, good. I would say good. What do you think?
I liked it. I think the design is really good. They're doing the skinny font thing, which is really in right now. I took my wife's iPhone while I was looking at some of these pictures online because I don't use an iPhone. I have an Android phone. So I kind of forget sometimes, unless I'm using my iPad, what it really looks like. And boy, does this make the iPhone look even more dated than I actually thought it was. This really, I mean, it's a very simple and clean look, and they needed that because that weird blue and gray thing that they were doing, it just looked old. And I think this flat white and black thing that they're doing with the text messaging, with the calendar, I think it's nice and clean, and it's fine, and it's exactly what I would thought it would be.
Do you think that they need to make it customizable? You know, because when you look at the screens, and I should bring this up just to look at them. There's kind of a whiteness to the whole thing, right? It's like, which, you know, mirrors their industrial design a little bit. But I look at some of the screens, like iTunes Radio is a good one of the Photos app. These really white apps, and I wonder if they couldn't have the notion of like UI themes where they could have light colors instead of just white, and have it be a little less glaring on the eye.
Yeah, I think they'll probably end up doing that, actually. I think they'll probably add it. They'll probably say like, well, you know, you guys said you wanted different colors because it seemed like you guys didn't like this, and this is what we did for you.
And then, next year, maybe they add it in iOS 8, you know, and they'll get a standing ovation because, Apple, listen, they love us.
You know what was fascinating? They were really critical of their Scott Forstall's ideas. You know, they took a lot of jabs at him with the mapping system. They took a lot of jabs at him. I don't know if he was involved in the skeuomorphic design of iOS.
Yeah.
They kept
by
saying,
the way,
like,
that ultimately that came down to Steve Jobs. But yes, I mean, as the guy running iOS previously, certainly.
But you are seeing a different Apple. I mean, they pretty much said like, no virtual cows were killed, and you know they made fun of the leather bound wrapping it around the contacts and the calendar.
They were beaten up for that for a long time. I mean, it really made iOS look silly. I had been complaining about that stuff for years and years. You know, the notion that like the game app had like a felt table.
Yeah.
Or the calendar app had like a ripped off corner of a piece of paper. You are aping user interfaces that most of your users have never even seen.
And you're doing it just to do it. You're doing it just to do it.
And that had its roots in a thing that happened with OS X where the icons over time became photorealistic. They were so taken by the fact that they could make things that looked exactly like real world items. It was almost like they couldn't stop doing it. It was a Steve Jobs, affectation. That came right from Steve Jobs.
I thought this was the first sign that, you know what, these guys, it wasn't all about Steve. They kind of have their shit together, and they're able to kind of continue Apple and continue the vision that they've always had. I thought they did a great job with the presentation. It wasn't boring. They didn't. You know what was weird? I found this. They spent like 20 minutes on iWork.
Yeah,
which was weird.
This is a kind of a legacy of Apple keynotes. They've always had some crazy amounts of time that they spent on things that are just so freaking obvious.
iWork and that weird demo in the beginning. What was that with the cars?
I made it. That was one of my best cracks about Apple. It was like, he said something like, "We're bringing gaming to the living room floor," you know. And I said, it actually makes sense that Apple would bring gaming to the living room floor because their fans spend a lot of time on their knees already. You know, I mean, you know what's funny?
I said that during, I made the same exact joke, but about they said something and everybody was like, "Oh my god!" And they started doing the clapping and they're the worshiping, and I was like, and now they all go on their knees.
Yep, exactly.
You know what? The Microsoft keynote, by the way, when they had the people, clapping at announcements. Every blog was, "Oh yeah, those were plants." Just want to let you guys know, all those people that were excited, they were Microsoft employees. It wasn't us.
That's disgusting. An Apple keynote is like a giant technology circle jerk. For anyone to claim otherwise at a Microsoft event, give me a break.
And listen, I get
everything
that.
You need to know about that person.
I get excited during these things. I mean, I was like, wow, that's actually really cool. Like I show emotion. I'm not sitting here just like. Actually, Wozniak was like really like numb to the entire thing, which like they went to him a couple times and he had zero reaction to anything.
Yeah.
So there's something weird there.
Right. Well, he's been critical of some of the stuff in iOS.
Yeah, good for him though.
And maybe that's it. It's just that simple. Maybe that's just him trying to be less partisan about it. I don't know.
Maverick was assigned Mavericks. was
Mavericks.
announced.
It's a terrible name, by the
It
way.
is, and nobody's going to call it Mavericks. They're going to call it Mavericks.
It's so awful. I think the reason, well, who knows? We get used to names. Like Pentium is the big example.
But
I just think
why
that name's
now?
terrible. I
Why
don't
change
know.
the cat thing now? It's 10.9. Like I would imagine they would have done it with like 11. They would have said, okay,
Sure.
version 11 is going to be named after
don't know.
cities and towns in California because whatever.
By the way, that tells me one thing. That the name OS X, which once literally meant version 10, right? That 10 was going to be this breaking point with the past, where the classic OS was like version 8, version 9, and now when we get to 10, it's a completely different thing. There's never going to be an 11, okay? And then that was the big question. So when they change it now, they're indicating that we're sticking with OS X as a brand for our computer operating system, and so that's one thing. Certainly, if they're going to name stuff after places in California or things in California, they could have dozens and dozens of names.
Oh, Sonoma.
Sure.
I actually thought they would be like Sonoma.
Yeah, Mavericks is such an awful first choice.
How about,
like Napa or Sonoma. I mean, a lot of these things would have been much better names.
how about like
Much better.
Englewood? Let's go to like like a little like how about like South Central?
Yeah. South Central.
Why don't we just get crazy?
Yeah, that's too bad. Anyway, whatever. I don't. OS X is a lot less interesting to me than iOS, simply because it's such a much smaller market. They mentioned that there were 72 million Mac OS X users now. Like users, like that's the user base. There were 1.4 billion active Windows users. I mean, so those things aren't even close.
Yeah.
There were, I think, I don't remember the number. It was 600 or maybe 620 million copies of iOS devices, I guess is probably the way they said it. That's a big number.
It's a huge number.
That's a big, big number.
Yeah. What was actually a surprisingly low number when they were doing those like, X amount of iPad apps and X amount of iPhone apps? The iPad apps it was 350,000 apps.
Yeah.
I was actually surprised at that number. I mean, it's a significant number, but I thought it would be much higher than that.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why. I would have imagined they would have had 1 million iPad apps. I don't know. Maybe it's just who cares, But when they were announcing the names, the numbers, that's what I thought. A couple changes that they were very excited about OS X, and the new MacBook Airs were also announced with the Haswell chipset.
Yeah. Not as huge a deal as they were trying to make that sound.
Well, they made the battery life thing a huge deal, right? They said, well, you're going to get 12 hours. You can get 10 hours consistent HD viewing time on this thing.
What they didn't mention is that that's not unique to Mac OS X.
No, I mean, they get good battery life anyway.
Sure.
But what was interesting was, before they went to the Haswell thing, they spoke about how well the battery management works in the new version of OS X. And how they're doing all this stuff where they're able to take they know which applications are taking up power, and they're able to allocate power to this and then turn it off in the background, all this stuff. And then they announced Haswell. And initially I'm like, wow, they did some work with the software end, and I'm sure they did. They tweaked it.
It's like,
But how much of it is software that's giving you that battery life, and how much of it is the fact that Haswell is a far more efficient chipset than Ivy Bridge?
Well, by the way, so it's Haswell, but you also have to write software that can take advantage of it. So a little bit of both. I mean, I don't think that Apple did anything that Microsoft hasn't already done in Windows 8 or 8.1 or whatever. Their battery life was already fine. Battery life in Windows 8 is already great. This is not a differentiator. The device itself is the differentiator. They didn't change the form factor, I think, at all.
Mm-mm.
It still looks okay. It still looks reasonably modern. But I think where they're losing out on the MacBook Air is the bezel size hasn't changed. I think that is starting to make it look a little old-fashioned if you compare that to like the Samsung Series 9 devices, which have 1/3 the bezel width all the way around.
And they could go bigger in the screen size. I mean, really, that 11-inch, the 11-inch model should be a 13-inch with very little bezel.
Yeah,
you still keep
a bigger screen in the same form factor. Yeah.
Bigger screen in the same form factor. Yeah, and I think that's always been a problem with the Macs. I mean, the MacBook Pro has the same problem.
Yep.
I'm on a MacBook Pro right now, a 13-inch, and you're looking at the bezel, and there's a good inch on each side, top and bottom. I mean, if you eliminated that, you would get a 15-inch screen on this, about a 13-inch display.
That is a trend that you see elsewhere. You know, Lenovo does that kind of thing.
Why is that? Why? Do you know?
Because I don't know why. I mean, people always think that every innovation that comes in a hardware or software world happens at Apple first. And this is one of many examples of where that's not the case. And so, by the way, you know, at some point, Apple, you know, a lot of people don't really notice this or think about this, but they tend to milk hardware designs for a long, long time. And this is part of them eking out their R&D for the MacBook Air. And next year, maybe, or whenever they do it, they'll update it. And one of the key features of that thing, I guarantee you, will be Apple touting 14-inch screen in the 13-inch form factor.
And I would love that. That'd be great.
Guarantee it.
I would love that.
People are going to, they'll be high-fiving each other in the audience and clapping each other in the back. We did it again. Oh, God, Apple is so innovative.
Chest bumping?
You know, yep. That's just the way it is. It's the way it is. You know? It just is, right? I mean, it's hard.
You don't even want to know what I just envisioned a mid-40s man with a lot of body hair with the Apple logo just painted on their chest.
Shaved out of the hair in his chest.
Shaved, and then he just like slapping high fives going up and down.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Listen, I'm a Mac user, so I would love this. That'd be great. Okay. I mean, just kill the bezel. Just go, do whatever.
Look, I last year, about a year ago now, actually just over a year ago now, I was looking forward to WWDC because I was thinking there was all these rumors. Apple's coming
we did WWDC together last year. Do you remember that? And you were so disappointed.
Okay, I don't remember.
Oh, you were miserable during the entire thing.
One of the things I was looking forward to last year was I wanted a 15-inch version of the MacBook Air. That's what I wanted. And they didn't release that. What they released was that 15-inch new version of the MacBook Pro, which is thick and heavy compared to an Air.
You're talking about the thinner one, right?
Has a crazy resolution, the Retina one.
The thin, yeah. It's also a little thinner than the current.
So thousands of dollars, crazy expensive, crazy high res, which doesn't work well on Windows, unfortunately. And so that was disappointing. What I wanted was a 15-inch MacBook Air. Now, on the Windows side of the fence, we actually now have a couple of choices, but at the time, there was only one, the Samsung. But we have 15-inch Ultrabook. So it's the thinness and lightness of an Air-type Ultrabook with a much bigger screen. And so when, I think it was late August, a couple of months later, I bought one at the Microsoft store here in Boston, Samsung Series 9, 15-inch Ultrabook. Awesome. Yeah. It's an awesome machine. But I would have bought I would have bought an Apple MacBook Air in June if I could have.
What's amazing is that, the MacBook Air, we talk about now we have Ultrabooks, so we have some sort of classification for them, but the MacBook Air was initially a response to the netbook. They didn't want to put out a $400 laptop, so they said, well, what we're going to do, we're going to compete with these netbooks, but we're going to offer them a much thinner and nicer design to kind of justify the cost and why people are paying. It wasn't this idea of we're going to create this only market for Ultrabooks, thinner and lighter laptops. It was, okay, well, we got to respond to this. And it ended up turning out to be this entire market, which those first generation MacBook Airs were a piece of junk.
The first one, yeah.
Oh, you couldn't even use it. I mean, it was awful.
Yeah, they had a little flip down drawer for the USB port, the one USB port.
Oh, it was so bad. So they announced that. They announced Maverick, and we got iWork, which I'm very excited for because I love doing. I love using an Excel ripoff and a Word ripoff. That
I was going to say, I'm not going to even entertain the notion that iWork in the cloud is meaningful in any way, shape, or form. But
what I was really surprised that they skipped over. There has not been a new iLife in about 2 years.
Yeah, well, and Apple has.
They made this big thing.
With the times.
Well, they made this whole thing about skeuomorphism being gone. Everything is flatter. Everything is nicer. It's cleaner. No more leather wrapping. But iLife is single-handedly doing that in every aspect. I mean, the photo gallery is awful. They have all this weird stuff that they're doing with that. I thought they would have been look, we're bringing this design
here's
over.
Here's the problem. And here we can predict a future Apple product here. iLife was made for a different era. iLife was made for the time when the Mac, in Apple's view, was the center of your computing universe, and that you would share stuff out in various ways. DVDs, you could put photos, make photo albums. You were making physical things. The era we live in now is a cloud computing era, and what they need is an iCloud version of iLife that is attuned to the online services that you would use to share these things, not to making physical products, and ideally would be based in the web, just like iWork is starting to become, so that anyone could use it, not just people on a Mac. I think that might be the future of that stuff, that you could, from your iPhone or iPad, log into iLife on the web and, share your stuff on Facebook, or share your, photos, share your photos in Flickr, share your, whatever it is. That you're not making photo albums, you're not making DVDs, you're sharing information, whatever it is, photos, movies, whatever, with other people in ways that make sense in it'll be 2014 by the time they do it, but in the modern era, not in the era of 5 to 10 years ago when they first started doing iLife.
Yeah, maybe they're killing it off.
Well, it's one of those things you have to kind of tag it along, because for some people it's still a big deal, and certainly they have whatever audience they have, and some of those people are normal people and so forth, and grandmothers that like to make books as scrapbookers or whatever. I don't know, but I think they need to address the way the world has changed. So they've done some of that stuff they put iTunes in the cloud, they just put iWork in the cloud. As I talk my way through predicting this, I would be shocked if they didn't do iLife in the cloud next. I mean, it makes so much sense.
We're going to continue this, but before we do, I want to talk about our advertising. That's Audible. Paul, you are a huge Audible fan.
I am.
You use Audible all the time.
I use Audible every day.
What would you be doing if there was no Audible? Very upset, right? I would imagine you'd be very sad.
Right. Let's not worry about alternate realities. Audible does exist.
Audible is a great service. Audiobooks, hundreds of thousands of titles. I believe they're at over 100,000 titles now. They were at 76,000 titles like 2 years ago when I saw. Phenomenal stuff. They have some great books on there, and every week or every other week, Paul and I do. Ooh, they changed their website.
Yes.
Oh, look at this. This is pretty. Wow. Good job, Audible. We do an Audible pick of the week, and this week, what is your pick, Paul?
So I think I've been talking for the past several weeks now about I've been going back and listening to books that I had read in the past in book form. So I've been listening to the Dan Brown books. I listened to the Thomas Harris books before that. I've been walking every day, 45 minutes to an hour, and listening to Audible books on the way. And a lot of these books, because I had bought them in the past, I have them on the Kindle, and so I've actually been going back and forth as well. So depending on the devices you use, you can use a whisper sync feature to, read part of the book in Kindle, listen to, pick it up where you left off in Audible, and go back and forth that way. Unfortunately, I'm using Windows Phone 8. I don't mean unfortunately I'm using Windows Phone 8. Unfortunately, the Windows Phone 8 version of the app doesn't support this, that functionality. So I have to kind of note where I am in the book, But this week, what I've done is I've finished listening to the Dan Brown books about Robert Langdon, Angels and Demons, Da Vinci Code, The Lost Symbol, and Inferno, right? The Inferno being the new one. And I was actually going to move on, but I noticed that he had written 2 books before this, and one of them is called Digital Fortress, which is the book am now listening to on Audible. And Digital Fortress is one of his pre-Da Vinci Code type books. Although there are a lot of elements in there, a lot of symbols, really smart people, someone who has an eidetic memory and all this kind of stuff. But it's about the NSA. And I was thinking, with what's going on with the NSA now and the secret stuff that's going on behind the scenes, where they're either taking or with the collusion of high-tech companies receiving information, I thought this would be kind of interesting. And sure enough, it actually broaches a lot of the topics that are kind of a hot-button thing now all of a sudden again, because I think this stuff especially with the NSA, for whatever reason, every once in a while, people become aware of the fact that, spy agencies in the United States are trying to protect us against foreign powers. And this is part of what they do, is they monitor online communications. And so that's actually what the book is actually about that. It's kind of interesting.
Oh, really? And very, very topical, considering.
Suddenly again,
Isn't it? That's very, very cool. Digital Fortress is the book by Dan Brown, and you can get it on Audible for free. And I'll tell you how to do that. Go to audiblepodcast.com/Andrew, and you get your free audiobook there. You take a look, you like it, you stay with them. If you don't, guess what? You can cancel it. I don't think you're going to cancel it, but my wife has turned into this Audible junkie at this point, and I'm no longer allowed to purchase stuff because she says the stuff that I get is very depressing, considering it's always about death in World War II. And she likes to do self-help stuff. Like, I'm going to change my life by reading this book. So we have very different tastes. I am more of a miserable person, and she's a happy person that wants to improve herself. So I'm no longer allowed to use it. So I have to go and purchase another Audible account so I could get my own books. It's become this at this point. audiblepodcast.com/Andrew. Get a free audiobook. And I want to thank Audible for supporting What the Tech. We have one more thing with the WWDC stuff, and I'm going to talk about Microsoft and Sony.
Okay.
Mac Pro.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't care about Mac Pro, but I'll tell you why.
I have a lot of theories on this, but you tell me.
Here's the thing. If you are a Mac Pro user and or fan, and we're hoping against all hope that Apple would actually make another Mac Pro, you were probably surprised by two things. One, that they actually did it. They have something now called the Mac Pro again. And that this new device has nothing in common at all with any Mac Pro they've ever made, ever.
Nothing. No.
The point of the Mac Pro was always about infinite expandability and the fact that you get the most powerful possible workstation imaginable. And this device is obviously, it's beautiful, like the old Cube was beautiful or whatever, but it's not a Mac. It's not a Mac Pro.
I mean, it's actually it's a stunning piece of hardware. I mean, it's a very
of course it is. It's an Apple product, but
My theory on this is that I know a lot of people are upset over it. I think the design is pretty cool. The whole turbine concept is cool for the fan. It should be
It's gimmicky.
It's gimmicky, but it actually does have some sort of functionality because it'll be far quieter than having like a fan blowing in the back.
Will it?
Yeah. Well, it should.
I guess we'll see.
I think that was part of it. Like I read some of the press stuff, and they did say it should be a lot quieter. Dual GPUs. This thing is soldered on, by the way, so you cannot change it. You're not going to be able to pop out the GPU. I think the only thing that's really upgradable is the PCI Express flash storage and the RAM.
Yeah.
Here's my theory on this. They never sold a lot of Mac Pros.
No.
It was never intended for Paul or myself or,
this isn't going to change that, by the way.
This is not going to change
When this thing comes out and it's $3,000 or whatever.
Well,
it's not,
here's I have two theories. One, that we are not their market. The people in the crowd really wasn't their market. The people that they want to sell this to is production studios and movie studios, where they're buying like 20 of them.
But
and
those are places where the design of this should never matter. This device as a workhorse should be a giant cube with infinite expandability, and it's not.
So,
and I just
the only thing I could think of is that because it's not upgradable, they see it as, well, you know what? Rather than hanging on to a Mac Pro for like 4 or 5 years, a lot of people are going to want to upgrade in 2 years. So they might drop the price on this because it's so, I mean, it is what it is, and that's it. They may say, okay, well, we're going to start the price at $2,000. What do you do then? I think a lot of people will buy it if they drop the price on it.
I don't see that. That's
what's the starting price right now? Let's see what the starting price currently is. I think it's like $2,500.
It's got to be
right. It's like insanely expensive. But let me just go to Mac.
They don't even have them in there. Oh, there it is.
Oh, here, the old one. Here we go.
$2,500.
$2,500 starting price, and that's a quad core. What if the starting price was $2,000?
It won't be.
But let's say it is. Could you? Where do you fall as far as, well, this thing is going to sell? It's not going to sell for $2,000. People buy $2,000 PCs all the time.
Sure.
$2,500.
There's nothing in Apple's history to suggest they would ever do such a thing. But
no, there isn't. But
I don't know.
I don't know. Here's the thing. I mean, let's say you're not a big movie studio doing Final Cut, right? Let's say you just want a powerful Mac.
It's true.
Yeah. Let's say you just want a powerful Mac that you want to do some video stuff, some photo stuff, and possibly play a couple games on there. You know what's a great purchase? The Mac Mini Server Edition. You're getting an i7. You're getting a decent video card. Nothing great. It's tiny. The design is small. You just pop that. I mean, it's literally this thick. And that's $1,000.
Right.
Why would you? I mean, from $1,000 to $2,500, you're talking about a big jump. How much more performance are you getting?
It's not worth debating this because we don't really know how much this thing's going to cost. And when it does cost $3,000, people will justify it by whatever, because it's got the Xeon, whatever it has, and it's got this and that, and whatever.
It's an older Xeon too. I believe there's a Haswell-based Xeon now, but I don't even know if it's out.
I just don't get this. I look at stuff like the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro, the iMac, and it's like, yep, it all makes sense. It's beautiful. Yep, got it. And then this one, it's like, okay, it's beautiful, but to what end? I mean, I don't get it.
Part of the keynote
This
that
is
they had.
the thing that Apple can't stop doing. It's like they can't stop trying to make some work of art, that is beautiful beyond any point, that it is putting aesthetics ahead of functionality.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't think it makes any sense.
I don't. If they're going to start at $1,800, $2,000, I could see it.
Again,
I can. But we don't know the price, so who knows? I mean that.
We'll discuss this when they announce the pricing.
Let me see what the iMacs start at. I believe the iMac starts at $1,200 for the 21-inch, 21-inch.
$1,299.
$1,499, $1,799, $2,000.
But this
and you're
is
getting an i5.
Previous generation. Well,
you're getting an i5, not even an i7.
Generation i5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't even have an SSD.
No, this is not good. I don't like those iMacs. So that was the last thing that they had.
They're beautiful to look at. I mean, and gorgeous screens, whatever. I'm sure they're great. That's not really the point. I mean, it's just, they're expensive.
Get a Mac Mini. Get a Mac Mini.
Everything is better when you have a Mac Mini.
That's going to be my insult from now on. When someone's like flips me off, I'm just going to be like, go buy a Mac Mini.
Right.
They won't even know what I'm talking about. Let's talk about Microsoft really quick, and then Sony. Microsoft had their announcement at E3. They? Yeah, there was a little Microsoft announcement at E3. What did you think of it?
I thought it was fine. Although I have to give some credit to Sony for, really hammering at Microsoft after the fact for some of the more controversial aspects of the Xbox One. So I thought the Xbox One presentation was they did a great job overall. That they did a nice job of highlighting the games. They announced the price, which I already knew was going to be $499. They announced it would be available in November, which also we already knew, and showed off a bunch of great looking games. I think that was the point. So that was fine. What they did do, unfortunately, was between the May reveal and this week's E3 event, they started blogging about all these things. Here's why we did the design. Here's the controller. Here's why it needs an always-on internet connection. Here's how our policies about used games. By doing that stuff, they've opened themselves up to being attacked by Sony. And Sony, which is a company that, by the way, cannot get out of its own way. I mean, for all of the complaining about Microsoft, if there's any one company in this group that I wouldn't trust to really follow through and stuff, it's Sony. I mean, I think this is such a terrible job over the past decade. Here they are being very aggressive and smart about going after Microsoft. So
really smart.
They did a great job of that stuff, I thought.
Do you think it's going to make a difference at the end of the day? Where no,
not even slightly. No.
I mean, the problem that they have is that they do not have the online gaming market like Microsoft does with Xbox Live. I think that's a major problem. I think a lot of people are invested into Xbox Live. The service, a lot of people are invested in the services and the gaming aspect to it, and they're just not going to jump ship.
Here's the thing. So this holiday season at $500, it doesn't even matter. If the PlayStation 4 was $500, it wouldn't matter. The only people that are going to buy an Xbox One this holiday season are the real hardcore group, the real diehards. And there are tens of millions of them. So I'm not saying they're going to sell tens of millions of consoles, but they're going to sell out. They're going to sell whatever they can make. And all of the complaining about the price and yada, yada, yada is going to go away next year when they just reduce the cost of the thing. There's some stuff that they could do, like release a version of it that doesn't have Kinect, which I guess they're not doing. I think that's stupid.
Are they not doing it because the entire experience revolves so much around the motions and Kinect?
I don't actually think the entire experience does evolve so much around that or revolve. I think that they're forcing the point. I think they're trying to say that this is so central to the experience that you can't use it without it, but that's obviously fairly ludicrous. It's too bad, but that's what they're doing. Okay, fine. So $500, this thing's going to sell at this holiday season. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to outsell the PS4 exactly. I mean, I think there's a market for both of these devices. But again, looking back over the past decade, Microsoft couldn't have treated Xbox users any worse than they did.
Yeah.
They made consoles that ran hotter and louder than a jet engine, that broke down consistently for like 8 years, 5 years straight, let's say 6 years straight. People kept sending them back to get them fixed, pining away while they were gone, couldn't wait to get them back, and then bought new versions of the console when that thing came out. I mean, this is the most dedicated audience possible.
And nobody said a word.
$60 a year for Xbox Live. Yep. They took away the family pack. Nobody complained. Whatever. We love Xbox. You know, this group of people that I am part of is just, they're fanatical about it. They just are. So you're not going to, none of this bullshit that's online right now about PlayStation does this and blah, 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 used games, yada, yada, yada. It's stupid. No one actually cares about that is an Xbox fanatic. Now, next year, things are going to change because once you get through that audience immediately, now you have to address the mainstream thing. And let's face it, $500
a lot of money
is way too much money for almost anything. I mean, nobody needs a $500 version of something that does Netflix and Hulu. I mean, we already have that stuff. So, you know, but the main issue I think with the cost over time is, so you get a PS4 that's $400, Xbox One that's $500. Again, it's the life of the console.
I mean, listen, $400 is a lot of money too.
$400 is a lot of money too, but it's the life of the console. So I think what's going to happen is over time, the prices come down in both, whatever. And, you know, this now allows a more mainstream audience to take part of this. I think over time too, that Microsoft reevaluates a couple of things. Having a version of the console that doesn't have Kinect built in, and selling a version of the console that is just that stripped down set-top box, which, by the way, until about 2 months ago, they were planning on releasing this fall. So maybe that becomes their year 2 device, where here's a version of the Xbox One that isn't the games.
But, you know, even the pricing thing is not really a fair comparison, because with the Xbox, this is how I see the pricing. First of all, you're getting a Blu-ray player, which you didn't with the 360, and now you're getting Kinect, which is about $120, $140 with the price included. So, yeah, it's $499 because you're getting the Kinect pretty much. With the PlayStation announcement for $399, you're not getting their camera thing, whatever it is, and you're not getting the iMotion.
The camera thing.
What I don't know what they call it. Sony I think that's what it is. You're not getting that. If you want it, it's going to be about the same price. It's going to be $499. So,
sure.
Actually, no, it's $60. So, okay, $30 less. At the end of the day, it's costing the same, really. Yeah. There's not this, oh my God, look at the price gap. Like, if it was $299.
No, it's like, would you rather have a PS4 and one game or an Xbox One and no games? It's like, if you're an Xbox user, this question doesn't even register. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, it's just, I want the Xbox, you know? It's like that anime cartoon that came out a while ago with probably the Galaxy S3 or something. It's like, hi, I'd like the iPhone. It's like, oh, we have this Galaxy S3. Is it an iPhone? No, then I don't want that. I want the iPhone. You know, like people, that's what they want. You know, I'm, you know, sorry. I mean, it's the way it is. So next year is a different story, but I think for this launch window, they're fine.
The comparison is, I mean, they're pretty, we have a comparison chart in our show notes, and it's nearly identical, really. Both have Blu-ray, both 500 gigs. One has Kinect, the other one has Move controller. They're both, are they the same CPU? It's an 8-core AMD, both of them?
It's not, well, actually, I don't know. So let's just say that I look at these specs and I see lots of the same thing over and over again. Yeah. I'm not actually positive they're identical, but
8 gigs,
8-core x86 CPU.
8 gigs DDR3, and the other one's 8 gigs GDDR5.
Yep.
Which I was reading a thing on Tom's Hardware, and they were saying how it's pretty much the same thing. 802.11n, both of them have it, with direct Wi-Fi. Xbox has direct Wi-Fi, Sony does not. HDMI pass-through, Sony does not. That's weird that Sony did not do an HDMI pass-through.
I think I made the comment earlier that one of the weirdest things that Microsoft did with the Xbox was try to integrate TV, right? I thought that was kind of weird.
But isn't it weird that Sony's not the one trying to do it, considering they are in the TV business?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, no, but I think that speaks to the fact that even Sony realizes that that's a past feature, not a future feature, you know?
Yeah, I guess.
That's the way I view it. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, okay, fair enough.
And you're going to be able to do real-time gaming, which I thought was pretty cool. The kids are going to love it. One does Twitch, which is Justin TV, and the other one does Ustream. Sony got Ustream, and Microsoft got Twitch. I think it's about the same thing, so it doesn't even matter. One thing that we kind of skipped over with the WWDC stuff was that they announced iRadio.
Yeah.
What did you think of that?
Well, nothing. I mean, they're late to the game doing the Pandora thing. The thing that always bugs me about these subscription-based, well, okay, in this case, there's a free version, like there is for Pandora and for Spotify, that has ads, and then if you pay for iTunes Match, which is a great deal, and if you're a part of that whole Apple ecosystem and doing iTunes and all that stuff, and I think iTunes Match is a great deal, and it gets better with iRadio or whatever they're calling it. It's always bothered me that Microsoft is never part of this conversation because they've had an excellent streaming and subscription-based music service for a long, long time. Now it's called Xbox Music Pass, and everyone's always like, "Oh, Apple's going after Pandora. Apple's going after Spotify." There are other players in this game too, and if you're in the Microsoft ecosystem like I have, and you use Microsoft devices, use Windows Phone, use a Surface tablet or a PC, whatever, the Xbox stuff is fantastic, and to me, this is, Apple again stepping on something that Steve Jobs once said that people don't want. It's like they're constantly stepping back from the precipice that was Steve Jobs' crazy opinions about everything. And, this is their first step. I mean, when this thing turns into a full Xbox Music Pass style service where you can, now you have access to their entire library and you can download it to your device and use it offline, and you pay a little bit every month for that kind of feature, then it gets interesting. But, like I said, we already have those services. They're called Xbox Music Pass. They're called Spotify. Nokia Music satisfies an interesting middle ground on those kind of services. So I think it was smart for them to do. They have to do it. First step, it's just early days. And this is something where they're just really far behind.
I read this story. I didn't have it in notes, but I read it and I just wanted your opinion. There were reports coming out that Nokia and Microsoft are going to be, and I'm quoting them, working even closer. And we'll have something to show us soon.
On?
There was a briefing, at a UK briefing for Nokia. The company revealed that they're going to continue to deepen their relationship with Microsoft and that they're going to have something in the works.
Okay.
Any idea what they're talking about?
Could you show me where that is? I'm curious.
I'm embarrassed if I did show you where it is.
Okay. It's okay.
It's a website that begins with an E and ends with a T.
It's fine. That doesn't bug me.
No. I'm going to put in the notes. Here we go. There you go. Look at that. Look at that magic. Right under the Google confirms. They're going to be working even closer with Redmond, and we can expect to see...
Where did you put this? Your notes are like 14 pages long.
All the way at the end.
Okay. I'm sorry. All right. Gotcha. Okay. So... First of all, there's been a long-rumored Nokia tablet coming. I have no information about that at all. I've been told by a couple people that, yes, this is happening, but, whatever. I know that Nokia is going to be releasing a so-called phablet-type phone sometime this year, and we know that in July they're releasing that EOS, crazy camera phone, whatever that is, like the PureView 41-megapixel, whatever that is. So, I mean, there's stuff like that. I mean, I've also heard on the side that... Microsoft, I should say, the Windows Phone team has changed their release schedule to match Nokia's needs rather than the reverse, because they now represent worldwide 80% of all Windows Phone sales. Even in the United States or something like, I think they're like 70 something percent of all Windows Phone usage in the United States is Windows Phone.
And because they're the most stunning ones, out of all of them.
And let's face it, their fate is tied to this. Whereas if Windows Phone goes away, HTC is going to be, well, they're not ever going to be fine, but they'll be just as fine as they would be otherwise.
Samsung will be okay.
Samsung, I'm sure they'll shed a tear. And
I don't even think so.
I don't think they even know that. Someone at Samsung is like, wait, we still make Windows Phones, really?
Is that Windows Mobile? No. There's something.
We still doing that?
There's a new Windows Phone?
It's like, who's doing this? It's like one guy named Bob down at the corner who's working on Windows Phone.
He's like a diehard.
Yeah.
Still using Windows 3.1.
But I don't know anything about what they're planning. But
I mean, I would like to see a tablet by Nokia. I mean, I would too. Like that.
I would too. Yeah. They do. One thing that Nokia has done really well with Windows Phone is holding up the whole ecosystem. They do a good job with apps, services, and hardware accessories. And the Microsoft stuff is kind of interesting on the tablet side because they have some EV out type adapters, and they have obviously the keyboards. That's pretty much been the extent of it. You don't see stuff like Microsoft speakers or Microsoft branded, Surface branded headphones or, whatever. And I think that's one kind of cool thing that Nokia could bring is both their brand and also their kind of Lumia style industrial design stuff to a tablet would be really nice.
Really nice.
New Lumias are
And you know,
just
it's not gonna look like crap or feel like crap. You know, it's gonna feel like a well-built piece of hardware.
beautiful. I'd love to see it.
I got a chance to play around with one of these more inexpensive Windows 8 tablets.
More inexpensive?
Less inexpensive.
Less expensive?
I don't know why.
Is it more expensive or less expensive?
I don't know. I don't know. You know why? I was trying to save for the quality, and then I was going to say it was cheaper, but I had no idea what the pricing is, so like my brain just like malfunctioned. It felt crappy, pretty much, compared to the Surface. I can't remember which one it was. I want to say an Asus. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Plasticky, really plasticky.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I think there are people, or I should, not people, but there are companies that can compete with Apple on quality and sell something of equivalent quality for less. But the truth is, when you get down to the $500 point and below, there's only one way you can do that, and you have to use cheap components, plastic, that kind of thing.
But I mean, you compare
at least it's available.
It's out there. But I was playing around with it, and I'm like, holy cow! Like the Surface is like I could now justify the price point that the Surface is at based on what I felt in my hands with this other, Windows 8 tablet. It had a awful feel to it. So I just wanted to comment on that. I don't know why.
Did you have to like shower afterwards?
No, you know what it is? Sometimes like I'll like something will happen. Like I'll play around with a computer. I'm like, I got to tell Paul this.
Right.
And then like
this
I
thing
forget.
sucks. Where's Paul?
I got to tell him how much this sucked. Or, oh my God, I saw somebody with a Windows phone.
Right.
Like I feel like I need to tell you every time, and I can't tweet, so I have all these things filed away. I got to tell Paul. That's the new show that we're going to be doing. And it's just me like blurting out stuff.
Right.
Like, hey Paul, I had La Fin du Monde.
Right. And then what you should do is I should just have someone with a camera with me at all times, so wherever I am at the time, I can just film like a 30-second response.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That'd
be phenomenal.
You know what I mean? Like Andrew, it's Andrew again.
So Andrew, yes, it's a very.
I'll
good
be
beer
reading the
that you
newspaper on a Sunday morning, and I'll be like, "All right, what happened?"
Give a camera to your wife. Like, can you record this for me? 30 seconds.
Yeah. I'm in the toilet. Could you just come in here for a second? I have to tell Andrew something.
I have to respond. I think that's about it. I think we covered everything. There's a lot to cover, but we covered everything.
Yeah, it's a crazy week, and it's only Tuesday.
Oh my God. Tomorrow, I'm interviewing Farrah Abrams from Teen Mom.
I am so happy to tell you.
The one that just put out an adult film. I'll be interviewing her.
Great.
Yeah, that should be a wonderful interview.
See what she thinks about the whole Xbox One versus PS4 debate.
You know what I'm going to do? I think I'm going to ask her what her opinion on Windows 8 is, and if she thinks 8.1 is going to correct the mistakes.
Right. She'll be like,
So, Farrah, listen, I actually want to ask you a question. What is your opinion on Nokia and Microsoft's relationship? Do you think they should be making the next generation Surface? And just wait for...
And you got to insert like the cricket sound.
I don't know. I like Apple. That's what she's going to say.
Is it an iPhone?
Is it an iPhone? No.
Because I really want the iPhone.
Yeah. MTV bought me a new iPhone. That's what I'm going to hear. So I'll be having a fantastic interview with her.
Okay, fun.
Yeah, so that should be fun. For all things Paul Thurrott, go to winsupersite.com. Home of Paul Thurrott. The official home of Paul Thurrott. And, of course, you can check him out on Windows Weekly, Mary Jo Foley, and, of course, Leah Laporte on the Twit Network, 2 p.m. East every Thursday. We do the show live every Tuesday at 3 p.m. East, whatever time you are. I don't know where you guys live. I want to know like the most obscure place somebody's listening to us from, like
Ooh,
from the Republic of Congo. Like that's where I want.
Or like the country with the smallest population.
Like 4 people.
Luxembourg or Monaco.
I got an email from this Armenian youth group in Lebanon, and they say that they watch our show every week. All 40 of them in the youth group. And they find it funny because I have a Armenian last name, but I'm very American. That was the email that I got from them.
I would tell those people that looking at you, you do not seem very American to me. In fact, I'm vaguely suspicious of you.
Yeah. Listen, I am too. I wouldn't trust anybody in the airport. I'll tell you that. But except for my accent, because sometimes the Queens comes out when I say father. And I'm going to the bar. No, well, you do the bar thing.
Yeah.
Bar. I like it when you say era, because I can't tell if it's error or era or an era.
I know that's the one. Yeah.
That's my favorite. I actually like to say era to you and then hear you say like 15
wait for
times.
me to say it back. Yeah.
It's actually enjoyable.
I have a tough time with that word. Yeah.
Someone's from Ireland, Quebec, Austin, Texas, Switzerland, England, Belfast. A lot of places. Look at this. Someone's
great.
in Hawaii, Budapest, Hungary right now. Wow, this is amazing. Scotland.
These are every one of those places is somewhere I wish I was right now instead of here.
Yeah. Anybody in South Central that can confirm the next version.
Except for there.
Yeah.
Right. Can you confirm that Apple has gotten the naming rights?
Anybody that's living on a Martin Luther King Boulevard or street. Croatia.
Wow, there you go.
It's actually funny that he brought that up. I haven't seen my wife in like 2 days because I've been like locked here in the studio. And she's like, what do you look like now? I said, well, I kind of look the same, but now I speak with a Croatian accent. So you'll be a little surprised.
Yeah.
So, wow, this is amazing. I love this international thing. Seattle. Rob Greenlee's in Seattle. That's a big surprise, Rob.
Shocker. Yeah.
Of course, you can follow me on Twitter, guys, at Andrew Zarian. Follow me. I need more friends. I don't have any real friends in real life, but you can be my internet friend. You can follow Paul at The Rot on Twitter. And anything new coming up, Paul? You haven't promoted anything for a while.
No, not really. I'm hoping within the next 30 days to finish that stupid phone book I've been working on for my entire life, apparently. But no, I mean, end of June, I'll be going to San Francisco for the Build conference. And hopefully that's it and then to Pennsylvania, but not really.
We should do like you should come to New York and we'll do like a What the Tech and Windows Weekly meetup.
Right. And right, we were going to do that.
Me, you, MJ.
Yeah, months and months ago now. But it is weird that I've not gone to New York in a long time. I used to get a lot of invites for New York. And actually, not coincidentally, I think we probably just talked about this, but, last year I didn't make Amtrak Select Plus status or whatever for the first time in many years. And that's a reflection of that, that the New York trip stuff is just not as frequent as it used to be. I'm not sure why.
We can invite Leo too.
Probably not going to get Leo.
Can we get like an imposter, like an impersonator?
A Leo impersonator?
Yeah. And then we could do our mud wrestling match.
Okay.
We'll wrestle for Paul. For Paul's.
Can't really be part of that.
Okay. Just I thought it'd be a little fun. I know the audience wants to see that happen.
Sure.
I heard he fights really dirty too, so I got to be careful. We'll gouge my eyes. Yeah. That'll be. Somebody Photoshop that, please. Like an old style boxing poster.
Right.
And I want like Andrew, like the Barber Zarian. Like I want like a really weird 1920s boxing name. It'll be fun. All right, guys. We'll see y'all next week on What the Tech. Good night, everybody.